Aloha, everyone. I'm your host, Christine Laney Mitri, and welcome to Smart Living Hawaii's podcast, where we discuss smart homes and technology, sustainability, healthy lifestyles, and smart business. Today, we're going to continue our Sustainable Leaders series, and we're going to have a talk story with Mindy Jaffe. She is, as we know, the worm lady.
Worm lady, AKA.
We will discuss composting, vermicomposting, and how worms play a significant role in our food waste reduction, and also the hierarchy to reduce food waste while growing our community. We will share the hurdles and challenges faced over the last 20 years, plus years, I would say, in this waste sector here in Hawaii, and what we have overcome and accomplished through her efforts over the last 20 years. And let's learn together how we can support Hawaii's future through composting. All right, aloha, Mindy.
Aloha, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we normally do a Zoom where she's jumping in from somewhere else, but today we're doing it together in person. It's been a long time. I don't think I've done in person since before Zoom. Before COVID.
Here I am.
Because Zoom came around and it was so much easier. But we'll be doing it together today. And just a little bit on Mindy. She has over 20 years of experience. Mindy founded Waikiki Worm Company in 2004, which helped introduce vermicomposting to Hawaii. From there, she became the coordinator of the Windward Zero Waste School Hui, which we'll talk about later. She also helped start the Worm Ohana, the Oahu Worm Ohana, and now working with the University of Hawaii as an educator in composting, and we're going to touch on that too. She is a wealth of knowledge, and instead of me reading off all she has done, I'm going to just let her share her worm journey with us today. How about that?
Gosh,
Okay. So let's see. Let's start with where are you born and raised?
That was a long time ago. I don't recall. I think I was born in Cleveland and I grew up in Denver.
And then
I moved here in 90.
in 1990. Okay.
And never looked back. So
What brought you to Hawaii?
The weather, the diversity, the food, all the things that bring people here. But I knew within 15 seconds of my getting off the plane on my first visit that this was my home. And I've never looked back.
Was it your first time here when you came?
Yeah.
And you just picked up and moved here and never been?
No, some friends lived here and I came and visited them over a Christmas break. And I left in the snow and the wind and the scraping the ice off the car windows and stepped off the plane in Hawaii and said, no, this is where I gotta be.
Awesome.
And I made it happen. I sold my business and moved here.
And what were you doing back then?
I was a jazzercise instructor.
Really?
Yeah, I had the largest franchise in 1987. I think I was the #1 franchisee out of 4,500 franchisees. And in those days, I was doing 100,000 a year, and that was a lot of money back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a very, very good career for me. It was the perfect thing for me to be doing in my youth.
Did you continue that here, or was it something you changed?
I continued here as a sub, so I would sub classes from time to time, and it was great fun and enjoyable. And jazzercise is the world's best exercise program. If you haven't tried it, get out there.
Do you still do it?
I really can't, but it's more of a time limitation than anything else.
And
I'm also old. I can't really move like that. I had my time in exercise, and basically I did it every day for 40 years. So that was enough. I moved on to other things.
Well,
Still highly recommend.
Keeps busy, and the work that you do does have like some physical attributes.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why I'm still pretty fit in my mid-70s.
Yeah. So okay, from jazzercise, what got you into worms?
Oh gosh, well, the short story is I lost my mind in 2000 and I ran for office. And I got elected as a state legislator in the House. And wow, what an experience that was. I won by 144 votes. I didn't know anything about government. I just wanted to prove I could win an election and unseat entrenched incumbent. And yeah, you can if you know how to campaign, which I did very hard. So here I was in the legislature. I had no clue of what was going on. And I learned pretty quickly that it's a strange place. And the lessons were hard. It's basically all about money and not really all the things they talk about. I was pretty miserable for 2 years, but the one good thing that came out of it for me was that I was on the Energy and Environmental Protection Committee called EAP. And that was the year that they were looking for where they were going to put the next landfill. So there are all these committee hearings that I sat in on where people were coming and talking about the fantastic new landfill they were going to provide for the state at, of course, taxpayer dollars. And as I'm listening to all this talk about waste, I'm thinking, why don't they talk about reducing the waste rather than where are we going to put our next landfill? Why is this not being brought up? So I'm Googling around and I'm finding that other states are doing incredible things to reduce waste. They close their landfill and they open resource recovery facilities. And among the many ways they do this resource recovery was something called vermicomposting. And I had never heard of this. I looked into it. It's worms. Oh, what on earth? This is wild. So I started reading about vermicomposting. And when I get unelected the next term, I voted for my opponent. I really wanted out of there. I decided to try this worm composting thing in my studio apartment in Waikiki. So
What year was this?
this was in 2004. So this is way back when, in the dark ages. I couldn't find the worms anywhere. It took me a year to find them here because I was looking in compost piles, and that's not where composting worms are. They're manure worms. They're eating manure on wet farms. So that's where I found them. So once I found them, and started using them, started taking in the food waste from everybody in my apartment. And it worked and it was wonderful. And I thought, people need to know about this. So in December of 2004, I registered my new business, Waikiki Worm Company, and I ran that business out of my studio apartment for 4 years. And it took off like gangbusters,
Really?
mainly from people from the mainland who moved here with their worm bin and couldn't find worms. So when I started advertising, I had composting worms available for sale. 1 million mainlanders called me and said, oh my God, I've been looking for worms. Please, I can't live without them. So my initial burst was with mainland vermicomposters who had moved here. You cannot ship worms to Hawaii. So I had the source. And I'm growing them out in my apartment in little boxes outside the door. It was pretty crazy.
How long do worms live?
They can live up to 15 years. They really can be very long lived, but the colonies go on forever and ever because they keep
How fast do they
reproducing.
reproduce?
They're pretty quick. If you have a 1/4 pound of worms, 4 ounces, a handful to start, within 5 months, you'll have 2.5 pounds.
And they just keep.
As long as you keep feeding them and you keep them happy in their home, they will keep reproducing. So from an original batch of worms I got, I basically got worms out to everybody who was interested on Oahu over many, many years.
How many worms is that? Could you estimate?
Billions. Billions. This has been 20 years
I
of worms
know.
from an original colony. So it's pretty amazing. And wow, the tons and tons and tons of food waste we've diverted from the waste stream and the valuable soil amendment we've created, it just boggles the mind. Now, once COVID hit and everybody was stuck at home, people were really interested in worms, and
They're interested in farming too,
and there was
growing
having a
and-
garden because there's no,
else
everything in
are
the
you gonna do
grocery
at
store
home?
was really hard to come by. So, and they have food waste, so they were stuck at home eating and cooking. And they wanted to have a garden because who wanted to go to the grocery store in a mask? And COVID really was great for the worm business. And I decided to start an online worm community called the Oahu Community Worm Ohana. And that was supported by some city funding. And we put it up there. And the deal was, if you wanted to join the Worm Ohana, you agreed to weigh your food waste and submit that data to the website. You had an account, and it would show up on a dashboard, the cumulative food waste that was diverted by all of our members. So people signed up, they had a little scale, they weighed their food waste, they put it in, and that dashboard number got higher and higher and higher. Right now, it's over 32,000 pounds. 32,000 pounds of food waste we've diverted since COVID, with people with a little box of worms at home. So it's the power of the collective. A lot of people with a handful of worms, when you add it up, can make a huge difference. And I said to myself, you're onto something here. This is all about community. We can't wait around for the government to do this. And I'm not crazy about the way the city is managing waste, especially food waste. I think they're definitely going in the wrong direction. So I wanted to grow this so more people, either individuals or groups or small institutions like schools, could use worms to divert their food waste, create vermicast, and grow a garden if they chose. And the Worm Ohana has been very successful. It's been dead in the water because we lost our funding for a year. But I'm happy to say that as of today, we have a new funder, and we are going to relaunch the Worm Ohana. And what's most exciting is not only are we getting the Worm Ohana back, but we are now going to be housed at University of Hawaii. There are facilities, two wonderful facilities. One is the Magoon Research Center in Manoa, where you have visited.
Yes, and it's right next to
Manoa Marketplace and Noelani Elementary School, two very, very big food waste.
That's so awesome.
Creators. And also out in Pearl City, in the area where you live, at the University of Hawaii Urban Garden Center. So we will now have two physical places where people can come to a worm workshop, to a bin harvest party, for a school field trip. I've got a million ideas for programs that will launch from this home base, this dual home base. Both of these projects have just recently been approved and funded. So we're just getting going on them. And we've got a wonderful team of people who are interested, and I'm going to have access to UH students.
I know, right?
And what I really want to do is impart all the technology I have in my head to.
Well, now it's just your head because you lost your computer, died after 23 years.
Computer died, but we're getting back and we'll figure it out.
We do have to figure out everything in your brain.
I know.
And get people to learn everything.
But mainly, I want to train people in this technology because I'm 74, not going to last forever. And I would like to pass on everything I know to these young, enthusiastic, sustainable, environmentalist kids that are coming up through the University of Hawaii system, and just at the community at large, who want to adopt this wonderful, rewarding, fabulous practice of vermicomposting, whether it's at home or at their school or at their business, or, sky's the limit, right? Worms can go anywhere. And if you manage them properly, I guarantee you there's no odor, there's no problems. They just become part of your household management or your school management. And they just keep giving and giving and giving. So I feel very fortunate to be at a situation right now where I can now expand what I know and make a massive impact. It is the power of the collective. A lot of people together learning this can make a difference in our waste reduction. So my goal is reducing food waste, creating value, and growing community. And in the end, we're all better off.
Yeah, for sure. So with that recap of where you're, I guess, heading into the future with your business, I wanted to back it up a little and share a couple stories that you shared with me. One, I wanted you to tell me the venture with the hatchery. and that family. I think that's where you had your worms for a long time. Yes, so I know that you're very passionate and very grateful for that family. So I would love for you to share how that kind of spun off. Was this after you were in your home and then you were able to move somewhere with your worms, or?
Well, at first, when I started this business, I didn't know how to grow many worms. I had to find more, and I decided a great way to get this knowledge distributed was to have worm workshops. So I had a worm workshop literally every weekend for several years. And I had various places around Oahu where I did it, and it was open to 25 people. They paid $25 and they came to one of my worm workshops, and they got an ounce of worms in a little 8-inch azalea flower pot. And I taught them how to do it. So if I could get together 25 ounces of worms over the week, I could have my weekend workshop. So I was driving all around the island looking for farms where there was manure and water together. Mainly a lot of pig farms, horse ranches, chicken farms, rabbitries, where people had goats. Anywhere I could find manure in a wet place, those worms were at work. I collected them from whoever's farm it was, or ranch or whatever, and paid them, for per pound, and they were glad to have me, glad to have the money. And I would do my workshops, go out and look for more. So in my search for worms in that very early phases of my business, I ran into the Peterson's egg farm up in Wahiwa. And I collected a pound or two of worms from them, and I paid them the money, and they were like, "Oh yes, we know we have these worms under our hen house eating the manure of the hens." And I said, "Yeah, that's what they do." And after collecting for a while, I asked if I could manage that area underneath the worm bin, to give it a little bit more water, manage it so they'd have more worms. And I could buy more worms from them. And they said, "Oh no, we're not, you don't have to just give us money. We just love to have you here, just because the worms are so wonderful, and because they eat the manure, the odor of the chicken manure goes down, and our customers certainly appreciate that when they come to buy eggs. There's no stink." And so as I developed that worm area underneath the chickens, the stink disappeared completely. So they were very happy to have me there. And I was very happy because now I had a source of worms. I didn't have to go driving all over the island and asking people, knocking on their door, "Excuse me, do you mind if we dig in the pig shed?" "Holly lady, you're crazy." "Yeah, go ahead." "Yeah, here's the check. They pay in cash. Oh, come back anytime." So I stopped that, and now I was raising worms underneath the hen house at the Petersons. And I was using their water, and I kept saying, "Please let me pay you." And they're going, "Oh, but you're doing us a favor, and we love what you're doing. You're getting rid of waste. You're helping us manage our manure issue, and you're creating this beautiful product, and you're selling these worms to everybody. This is wonderful. You're welcome here." Do you know, I had a vermicomposting breeding operation underneath the Peterson's chickens for 11 years. They never asked for a penny. They were gracious and beautiful and wonderful to me, the most lovely humans I've ever met. And we just became great friends. And over that 11-year period, I built my business. I learned how to grow worms, and I started to have enough worms, and I created some large scale bins, and we started to go into the schools with larger scale bins and plenty of worms. So after 11
The
years,
schools that you went into, or that's in the Kailua area now?
actually it was everywhere.
Oh, was
I
it?
went to 136 schools with a worm program through a city recycling program that was sponsored by the city when they had a recycling office, which they don't anymore. That's another story. Things changed in 2012 when H Power added another burner. That kind of stopped recycling on this island. And that was
Oh,
too
I mean,
bad.
trying to stop taking our trash. That didn't
Yeah,
help.
they didn't. Yeah, exactly. So
We do have a podcast with on the H Power and recycling and everything, so you guys can check that
It
out.
made a pretty big impact
But
on
just for
recycling.
maybe so you don't have to be the voice on it, but for everybody to understand, like H Power, if you don't know, is where everything's incinerated, all of our trash goes there, everything that can be burned gets burned, and they do have to meet a threshold of poundage every year, and if they don't meet that, then they're paying all this extra money. I mean, this money is going to them regardless. So what ends up happening is, because we have to send so much trash to them, they're not really caring like what, it's just all gonna get burned anyway in their mindset. But what we have to understand is that there's, the burning doesn't just, everything is gone and it's just poof, gone into the air. There's still all of the ash that comes from there that has to go to our landfills, which are already filled. And we have this problem where she said back in the 90s, we were looking for landfills. Well, now the landfill that we had found, the ones that we found are now at its capacity, and we're still trying to secure a location today. So we have this problem, and we also have solutions.
Food waste is a big problem on Oahu,
Yeah.
and I have a bit of a solution.
Yeah.
And to me, the most damaging thing about H Power is that they burn food waste. And that organic material is the secret sauce to make a high quality compost for our agricultural here. So
Yeah, so that will be the next thing that I
Yeah.
want. Maybe that's the best segue into, for people who don't really know about composting and vermicomposting, the different types of composting and why it's good. I mean, there's definitely some movies and films out there that you can watch a little bit more. But when we talk about, the climate and how these things are going to help, this closed loop system that we have here, if we do all this, maybe you can just give a 101 on composting and how vermicomposting with the worms is very different than, per se, like just composting some, tree trimmings that you put outside and have it. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of composting, different levels, because there's all kinds of organic material that is produced. And the three composting methods that I have some expertise in and that I've been doing for a long time are thermal or hot composting, which you can put very high energy foods in there like meat and dairy, and it's wood mulch. So that's very high energy. It gets very, very hot, and it's the heat that does the major breakdown.
Mhm.
So when we were at the schools, thermal composting is how we got rid of the post-consumer waste, the food waste that was thrown out. Sorry, folks, the kids don't eat school lunch. Maybe 5% and 95% is thrown away. And instead of going to H Power, we would recover it and build hot compost piles. Those hot compost piles break down to an unbelievably high quality compost, probably certainly the best you can get on this island. Our organic farmers buy it up at premium prices and find that they've never had better results, better yields, better crops. It is the secret sauce. It is the jet fuel for sustaining organic, restorative Hawaii agriculture. And right now it's all being burned at H Power. That is the big crime. That's the worst thing that's happening, is food waste is being destroyed forever. That resource needs to be recovered and composted, because that's how we're going to support Hawaii agriculture in a very real way. The second, and most people can't do that at home.
Mhm.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But what you can do at home is your green waste. All the waste, the organic waste from your yard, your grass, your leaves, your prunings, your garden waste, all that can easily be done in a 32-gallon rubbish can with pukas in it for aeration and drainage. And you keep one or two of these little cans going, and you're making beautiful compost from your trimming. So it should not be going out on the curb to be hauled, transported, and burned away, because you can make your own compost for your landscaping and lawn and gardens with your green waste in a rubbish can and some water. This is green waste composting is very easy. Anybody can do at home. And the third is vermicomposting, where that is for food waste, fruits, veggies, and grains that you feed to your little colony of composting worms you keep in a little box or a little manufactured worm bin, and that can be done anywhere. Again, I ran my Waikiki worm business out of my studio apartment for 4 years, had a lot of worms going, no complaints from anybody, because worms are clean and odor-free and lovely to work with. So
They're
worms are
quiet too.
and they're quiet, they're industrious, they never complain, they eat anything you give them. They're lovely, lovely creatures to be associated with. So I've everything that's being done on a large scale right now, I think is very destructive and very much in the wrong direction. But we can take action as individuals by learning to worm and having our own worm bin. And it's amazing how much it adds up. Look on the Worm Ohana, if you want to see the numbers, what people are doing just themselves with little box of worms. And generally, I recommend if you have space, you also do green waste and worm composting. That's going to take care of 99.9% of your generated food waste from any household. And our institutions, like schools, unfortunately, the DOE did not like what we were doing, and so they shut us down on the Windward side. There's one remaining zero waste school, and that is Oahu Public Charter School in Lanikai. And because they're a charter school, the DOE could not boss them around. They've been doing this for 11 years, full on. They have a completely circular campus where all of the organic waste that's generated on that campus is composted and used for gardens. They have an 8-acre farm that is unbelievably productive, and they have an ulu forest. So that's what you can do with waste if you know what to do with it. And I believe on the smaller scale, smaller institutions, individuals, small communities, even little communal worm facilities are possible. There's a guy out on Marina. How do you say it?
Oh my gosh, now you just
Keehi. How's that pronounced? I'm so embarrassed.
Oh my gosh, my brain is fried.
Anyway, you guys all know that Marina out there?
Yeah.
Right. There's 100.
Keehi Lagoon.
Yeah, Keehi Lagoon and Marina. So he's the harbor master. He actually lived in my building when I started this business, and he would bring his banana peels down for my worms. He called me up and he said, I'm the harbor master here. We have maybe 12 liveaboards, people that live on their boats here in the harbor. They have their boats are here and they live on their boats. And they're always complaining that they've got this food waste and it's stinking up dumpster. Can I do a communal worm facility for them? And can we figure this out? And we're doing that now. We're working on figuring that out. And he wants to manage the 12 liveaboards and their food waste and plant some trees on their by their laundromat. They have a little communal area with, tables and Coke machines and stuff. He wants to grow papaya and banana and food waste and food. So the waste will be of good quality and the food will be healthy for the liveaboard sailors. So I think that's really, if you can do it at a boat harbor, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you have a little space, and obviously this takes some time and some learning, we can give you full support and teach you what you need to know and provide you with some worms. So stay tuned as our 2 facilities develop, both at Pearl City at the Urban Garden Center and at the Magoon Wormery. Yeah, in Manoa. We will have lots and lots of opportunity to get people started on this wonderful journey that is really great for the environment. And I'll tell you, it makes you happy because it makes you feel like you're solving a problem. You're not waiting for someone to
individually,
do it.
right? And it's not something where it's manageable for a person to do this and it's actually making an impact, right? And you're
Yeah, it is.
and
again,
everybody
it adds
always
up.
asks like, well, what can I do to fix this problem? And this is one of those things.
Yeah, I can't change the world, but I can get a lot of people who are going to change the world in a little way, and together it adds up and it does make an impact. And I think the Worm Ohana that's been running since 2020, since
How many
has really proven it.
family or households would you say have joined now?
Maybe 300 or so. Not everybody reports.
Mhm.
They kind of get out of the habit, but a lot of people do. So I know that the number in there is probably double.
Yeah.
We've done 30 tons since we've started, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And we also have a worldwide following. Our videos are put into a YouTube thingy, are housed or whatever.
Yeah, and
on
you have
YouTube.
social media. She doesn't know this.
I
but-
don't know this. I have social media and I get emails from, we have over 1,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel. I get emails from Dubai. I get emails from the UK, people going, oh, can you tell me about this, that? Where's this coming from? It turns out that people are following the Oahu community Worm Ohana around the world and around the country. And this is absolutely so great.
Yeah.
We can do this, folks. This is something we can take charge of
Can
and
you, for
fix.
people who don't know, I guess the quality, so this is just something I think people think about, right? So when you do want to plant something, or you go to Home Depot and you're buying like soil, right? So just so everybody understands, if you really don't know anything about composting and all of this good dirt soil that you're making with composting, could you kind of give an example of like what you find in the stores and how you say the organic farmers want everything and what makes them different, and the microbes, just explain to them a little bit more about how good this is. It's really like gold, like for people who don't understand, but maybe just
Right.
dive a little bit deeper as to the quality of what it is you guys create.
We create living soil. Massive amounts of microorganisms, fungi. Soil is alive, real soil is alive because it nourishes plants through the relationship of microorganisms and the plant. They're communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so dirt is dirt, mineral soil is dirt, it's dead. But when you put compost, which is organic matter that's been processed, it is alive and it is living soil that makes things grow and grow vigorously. And of course, the more growth you have, the more CO2 is sucked out of the air. And this is all climate change mitigation from start to finish. But you got to have the microbes. They are the ones. And with this kind of composting, whether it's thermal, green waste, or vermicomposting, you are creating massive amounts of organisms.
And they're all different because of the different ways you do them.
Yeah, they're a little bit different. Yeah. But vermicast is especially high in the microbial. It's got lots of nutrients in it that are delivered by these particular microbial organisms.
That's basically like the worm's poop.
It's the worm's poop. Vermicast is the worm's poop. Yeah. So vermi means worm, and cast is what they cast out their back end. So here, vermicast, they're talking about worm poop.
So when you're putting soil together or like a mixture together for plants, you're using a little bit of all three that right?
Yep. Generally people will kind of amend their soil, mix it in with their green waste or their thermal compost that they have. But most people are going to have green waste and it's perfectly wonderful compost. So they use an amendment. But vermicompost works specifically with the roots of plants. So you're not going to mix it in there.
Oh.
You're going to have your little hole or your row, and you're going to take a handful of vermicast and put it right there where you're going to put the seeds or the seedlings. So the vermicast is with the roots. That will give your plants an excellent start. Once your plants are growing.
So it's like not a lot. It's like when you add that truffle sauce all over, truffle oil on top of your.
But more than that.
No, I mean over your food, and you're just like, yeah.
A little goes a long way. So we sell 5 pounds of vermicast for $20, and it pretty much will get people through a gardening season. So you put a little bit in when you start your plants, and then you make a tea, an aqueous extract from the vermicast. And you can do this just in a bucket with a couple cups of vermicast in a pantyhose toe or a paint strainer. You just stick in there and you stir it up for 24 hours, let everything kind of get dissolved into the water, and you water your plants with it. You do a soil drench. So once your plants are established, you just water them with every other watering, with your vermicast tea or your compost tea. And most people like a combination of both. So they'll make a little tea bag out of their green waste compost and their vermicast, let it soak for 24 hours, stirring it up, aerating it. Or they'll get a commercial tea brewer that aerates it, and you get a little bit more quality with that. But just a handful in a bucket of water and let it seep, water your plants, you'll notice a difference right away. So the water will bring the microorganisms down to the roots. So that's how that works. So you either use the solid stuff when you do your starts, so you can get it by the roots, or you use the tea. Yeah, and
You
and
don't drink it.
no, this is not tea for drinking. No, no.
The plants drink. the
So I
tea.
will tell you, I have sampled it. It tastes not that good. It's dirt, but it won't hurt you. It's full of wonderful microorganisms that are good for you as well. So no worries if you have a kid that, wants to sample things.
It's not like toxic, like, a lot of chemicals are.
It's not toxic at all. And it's just filled with wonderful things. So and people use it as a foliar spray as well, because there's some things that can come in through the surfaces, and it has an enzyme in it called chitinase. Chitin is the exoskeleton of insects. Chitinase breaks that down, so their little feet get burned because that chitinase is now, you spray a plant. So people use it against whitefly, against
okay.
mealybugs, all kinds of critters. So they'll use the foliar spray of their vermicast tea to keep down some insect pests, as well as use it down to the roots of plants. So it can be used either as a soil drench or a foliar spray. So you have plenty of use for this stuff. So if you've got a box, okay, I have in my apartment building a box, one of those 18-gallon Sterilite boxes, storage totes you get from Walmart for $8. Puka's in the bottom, Puka's for.
You guys still
aeration.
sell those kits?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or is
Where's
it,
worm kit?
how much does it cost?
$100 will get you everything you need. You get quarter pound of worms, you get the box, you get the bricks, you get the bin blanket, you get a nice scale for weighing.
Mhm.
So you get everything you need. You don't have to go shopping. You get the bedding, you get everything. It's $100, and that'll start you on your journey.
And then she has a video that explains all this.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you how to do this.
She doesn't know how to find the video,
I
but it's
don't know
easy
how
for
to
you
use
to find it if you go to their website.
That's it. So anyhow, that's the Learn to Worm kit, and it's just simple basic box bin, relatively inexpensive. You go for 6 months to a year, you do your first harvest, which is separating the worms from the castings, because they've eaten the bedding and they've eaten the food that you've been giving them, and now it's worm poop. And you separate them from their worm poop, it gives you a nice supply. So my box bin in the back of my apartment, and I take in the food waste from all my neighbors. Each one of those 18 gallons gives me 10 gallons of vermicast every year. So that's plenty supply to give to all my neighbors who garden and everybody with their potted plants. And we just take care of all that. And
And it takes 1 year to.
it takes 1 year to make finished vermicast. So this process is very complex.
Yeah, and so when you sell $20 for a 5-pound bag.
Yep.
That.
It took a year to make it.
Yeah.
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 So you can get that while you're doing your first year and get used to the product. But, since a whole lot of people joined at COVID, so we have a whole lot of people now who've been doing this for 4 years. And if I run into them and I say, how's it going? They go, oh my God, I could not live without my worms. I don't believe I got this long in my life without having worms in my household, because they are now a part of our life and the cycle that we have in taking care of our little piece of the planet. So let's get more people involved.
Yeah.
I want everybody to learn to worm, get their wormies, and take part in this wonderful process.
Yeah, so, let's see. Were there any, just to recap on any type of legislation or bills that maybe were last year coming down the pike, or anything that that you would like to share, or things that we should look for coming up? in next legislation. I always like to mention any of these things because sometimes just for people that want to be active on the ledge side or ways to support you, in these
Well,
things. Is there anything going on?
I don't think so. There isn't a lot of support. There was a lot of support from the legislature, and in 2018, we had a bill passed after 3 tries to support our
Compost.
composting at our public schools. And we were legislatively appropriated $300,000 to expand our 5-school Windward Zero Waste School Hui into 9, and then the plan was to do 14, and it would be a whole complex, and then we could really measure the impact. And Senator Gabbard was a big supporter, Representative Thielen was a big supporter, and they did one of those things where you come to the Senate and they give you one of those certificates, say how great it is, yeah. And the bill passed with 100% yes. There wasn't a single no vote. After 3 years, we did get the funding and we were ready to go. But instead of the schools getting the funding as intended by the legislature and the governor when he signed the bill into law, it went to the DOE. And they decided instead to give it to an engineering and construction firm to do a study on composting on public schools. And that study never happened. We haven't seen a penny of that money. The legislative intent was completely usurped. The Department of Education, they do what they want. And so without the support of the DOE, the schools are out. But it doesn't mean other institutions, other communities, other people can't do this until they finally get their heads back in the right place.
Mhm.
But the legislature is very much for it, the Department of Education.
Yeah, well, I think that there are still very active people in this space, and I think with the DOA, if there's a way for us to bring composting into the schools, back again at some point, I think that is the direction that I feel it's getting pressed on for waste management, for the city, the state in general, because of the fact that we don't have these landfills. And as much as we have this hurdle with the H power, it's one of the things where I feel like they're having to put and invest into this composting at some capacity. So I'm hoping that we'll find a way to, wiggle into
Yeah.
the DOE in a
We-
positive light.
We
It's my
pioneered
goal. Like,
this. We pioneered this and it worked. And I do not believe for 1 minute that.
how many
this
years
is
were
dead.
you at the schools?
10 years.
10 years.
10
And then
years.
she has, the thing that's great is that they kept a lot of data collection.
I have data going back, daily data going back now 14 years. So we know this is good and it's not dead. But what it has to do right now, it has to lie fallow because we were ahead of our time and times have to change. And I believe it will come back. So the technology is there, the protocols and procedures are there, and that's not going away. Oahu School is going to keep the torch burning. They're our flagship, show how it's done and prove the value of this circular eco-economy. And I truly believe it will come back. And that's why I'm really excited about our opportunity now to pass this information on to young people, because when it comes back, there's going to be a lot of jobs for resource recovery specialists.
Yeah.
And I want those people to be able to step out and do what I did in those 5 schools with my wonderful, amazing staff. And it's just such a rewarding job. And why not create some rewarding jobs? Don't we want to give our young people some great things to work with and work on and be a part of? I think so. So I fully believe this is coming back. We're lying fallow right now at the schools, but you can't stop this.
Well,
You
I
can't
think
stop this.
one opportunity that will kind of help within the DOE and working with schools is to help with capturing the waste and separating and, diverting the waste elsewhere. And so if we can't necessarily do the composting currently on site at the schools, if there is a way that we're able to still get the schools into a mode, especially the elementary schools, is to divert their waste and to sort their waste. And then my goal is to do and help with the lunch at landfills program that our Rotary is really doing successfully in the East Coast. And if we're able to educate some of the students and then, kind of do this waste sorting situation, and then we also then take the food waste to places that can compost close by.
Unfortunately, that infrastructure doesn't quite exist yet.
Yeah, I know. So that's why we'd like to start and see what we can do to get things going here, because the kind of compost that we have currently, there's only one facility in the States that could actually take the compost, right? And so it's kind of like a pilot program that I would love to see get started. And there are 2 high schools that are going to be getting these facilities as well within the end of this year, before the end of this year. And if those high schools are going to start composting and they have the funds to do so, I think this will open the door to looking at alternatives, not just the big facilities, but also the types of products that you guys are doing and the different ways to, to compost and to educate about it and to, bring it back in. So I think, if there's a different angle that we can take and, it gets approved through different ways, we'll bring it back. That's my goal. To bring it back.
We're not quite sure.
And
but
you're
it's
in
got
the,
to
and
come.
so you're in the field of now the university level, and they've welcomed you in with
Yes.
open arms and
Yes.
funding. And so I know if we're looking at the top down, and this is, the state as well down, I think that's, a great start. And I think it might have a bigger impact than you think, so I think it will then just start going through, from top down. I think it can have a big weight on what's going to happen in the future. So I really do appreciate everything that you're doing and all the stuff you've done in the last 20 plus years.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and I know it was an uphill battle this entire time, but I think you've had a lot of fun working on it. And I think your
Absolutely.
next
A joy.
exit of all of this will be to educate the people that are going to take on after you. So
Yep. And there's something really amazing about worms. They do 3 things. They divert waste from the waste stream. They create an amazing, beautiful organic fertilizer, and they change your worldview. Everything looks different when you regard waste as resource, and it changes the way you see everything. To me, the schools create the biggest value we have right now on this island, which is the organic material to make rich soil for our farmers. And
you you're running out.
so we just sold our last, that was the 2022-23 yield, finished and was sold to our wonderful organic farm, Mountain View Farm in Waianae. And he's really at a loss of where he's going to go for that high quality stuff. But we will be back, mark my words, this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just on the cusp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
how is the best way for people to reach you? Is it email? Is that the best way?
My computer is dead.
Well, you don't, well, anyhow,
Yes,
there is a
yeah.
website that you can go to. There's 2 websites. So one is wormohana.org if you'd like to learn more about how you can start your own bin, a worm bin, and join that community. There's also waikikiworm.com,
That's
which
my
is
website.
her website if you're wanting to learn a little bit more specifically on Mindy and her initiative. And then I guess you don't, do you want to share your phone number with, or do you just want them to look there and reach
Take
you?
a look at, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not good on the phone, folks.
But okay,
Go
how
to the
about this?
website, leave me a message and I'll get back.
There you go. What about ways that they can help or serve or volunteer? I know with our Eco Rotary, our goal this year is to set up some service projects to
Okay.
assist you. And so if that's an avenue anybody's interested in taking and you want to volunteer or help with these two projects that are coming up that she's going to be working on, you can reach our Eco Rotary. It's at Eco Rotary that you could find on Instagram, and you can connect with us as well. And we can also get you connected. And we can maybe do a volunteer project with you shortly
That would
in the
be
next few
great.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've got these two facilities now that are going to be rocking and rolling with all kinds of programs. So yeah, we can use some volunteer help, and please, folks, your donations would much appreciated, because in order to do this, we need to buy infrastructure and equipment and supplies and all kinds of stuff. It takes money. So we do have some funding from bigger folks, but as we know, the power of the collective, if everybody gives a little bit, it really adds up. So if you have an extra $25, go to UH Foundation and help us, because to do these big projects, yeah, you need money. So if you can't personally do this, we would appreciate your financial support very much. Thank you.
All right, I think that's it. Wraps up everything here. Thank you so much, Mindy, for taking the time out. I know you need to run back to your worms.
I do.
That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much. And if you guys get a chance, definitely subscribe to our podcast. You can go to our website at www.smartlivinghawaii.org and check out our podcast there. And you can also check us out on any of the Instagram, Facebook platforms that we have. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Mahalo.
you.
Until next time, live smart.